that's a pretty strong statement about where we currently are and what we could do. I think that's, myself, I think that's fairly well put. Others may disagree with that, but I think that pretty much sums up where we're at today. Again, we're looking at, under the policy section on the left-hand side of 172, halfway down it says, to better meet current and emerging needs, future development needs to focus on providing new, high-quality, multifamily residents as opposed to the current trend of building single-family homes in areas not currently served by water and sewer. This again, I think is, this goes right back to what I've been saying all along. I think there's some conflict within the different sections of this. It seems to be headed in two divergent directions here, and yet we're proposing to do just that. And I'm not exactly sure that the current trend of building single-family homes in areas not currently served is necessarily where we're really at. I don't know whether staff knows how many single-family homes are currently being built, but I think it's a pretty limited number. Small, right? Yeah. So I'm not sure that that's really the current trend. I think right at the moment there's not a lot of residential single-family development in the city. It also talks about investing in our downtown neighborhoods. It talks about improving the quality of affordable housing. I think that one of the things that's difficult as far as some of the downtown housing are some of the constraints that are played out by Maine State Housing and some of the other state agencies that end up getting involved in it. I know that there are a significant number of tax incentives for some folks, those that are willing and able to put the time and effort into getting those. But that's not universally true for small landlords. That's a challenge. Some of the regulation inflicted on that type of development is difficult for the small landlords. And I don't think immediately we're going to change that. That's more of a state level. There's a statement on the top of 173 that starts out with creating an affordable housing policy that requires new development over a certain size to offer units at or below market rate. I think I'd like to see a housing policy that requires new developments to have a certain number of market rate. Actually try to push the number of market rate rather than the ones that are below market rate. It almost seems as though that statement is the inverse of what we would really want to strive for. So I'd like to see something done with that particular statement. I think under enforcement date, the first two words, delete and replace, probably need to be struck. I'm not exactly sure why that remains in there. I don't know if that was done or not really sure about that. And then right at the bottom, it talks about the challenge that remains that if staffing levels allowed, code enforcement or the fire department could be in each building on a monthly basis. I don't know how many buildings there are that would need to be inspected in the city of Lewiston, but my guess is it's hundreds, if not thousands. How we would ever get to them on a monthly basis, I'd be hard pressed to think we could get to them on a yearly basis. So I'm not sure that the monthly basis ought to stay in there. That would require a huge additional staff, and I'm not sure that we're ready to fund that quite yet.
I think that's what that's saying to a degree, is that even if you had that luxury, you would find that you would continually be in those buildings because there would be violations corrected, new violations, violations corrected, new violations.
Oh, I don't
I
disagree.
think that's sort of the sense,
Yeah, that may be the sense, but it doesn't actually read very well that way.
but that certainly never happened.
That certainly doesn't seem as though that's gonna happen in the foreseeable future here anyway. There's a word on the next page that somebody who is an attorney maybe can explain to me. Liz pendens. Anyone exactly know what Liz pendens are?
When we do a lawsuit, we don't have the ability to place a lien on a property. We do a lis pendens to form a lien, but it doesn't have the status of a tax lien. Many times, banks, new owners will want to eliminate those liens, if you will, those lis pendens, and we may collect when a property is sold. But there's nowhere in the law whereby we can take legal action against the property and then lien the property with the status of tax lien, other than a condemnation at the council level or in superior court. So it is a powerful tool because it's something, and we do it every time we do an 80K case, a lawsuit.
Okay. It's just a legal term I'm not familiar with. Thank you, Gil, for explaining. The idea of vacancy licensing, that was, never actually seen that one. How you would ever collect on a vacancy license, I'm not exactly sure. Or a fee structure. But one thing I would like to see is in the event there were foreclosures or there were multiple vacancies of building, that they be required to at least list them so that the city could be more aware of them.
I just found out recently, maybe shame on me, that the Treasurer's Office actually receives notices, and I don't know how long that's occurred. I don't think it's that long. But they're receiving notice now from the lenders when the lenders are in the foreclosure process. And the Treasurer's Office has been sharing that with us, and that is helpful. Now, oftentimes we know about the buildings before anyway, because it becomes pretty apparent when somebody walks away from their building. We typically hear from tenants if there are any tenants in the building. And you see it. It's usually pretty apparent.
Now, there's actually a section in the zoning land use date, right, that if a building is considered vacant for more than 2 years, that there's difficulty in reoccupying it?
Yeah, but that's limited. Doesn't include 1 and 2 families.
Yeah, it's only 1 and 2 family.
Does not include 1.
Oh, doesn't include 1 and 2 family.
It's essentially non-conforming uses. If you have a use that's abandoned for more than a year, as a matter of right, you can't replace it. There is an opportunity from the 1-year mark, the 24th month, to go to the Board of Appeals and get permission to reestablish that use. And like David said, the exception to that is 1 and 2 family dwellings.
Okay. And the 2 sections hold the landlords accountable and hold the tenants accountable. That's a piece of enforcement that I'd be hard pressed to figure out how you manage to actually do that. I mean, landlords, obviously, if there are deficiencies in the building, obviously they can be cited. But tenants, I don't know how you actually manage that.
That's the problem with the city's mentality, right there. Well, you hold one party accountable by saying to the other ones, we don't need to hold you accountable, do what you want.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I think we should. I just don't know exactly what the process would be, what the mechanism would be for holding tenants accountable for what they do.
Same they do to landlords, fine.
If they don't pay.
They don't pay us, send them to jail. Then maybe they need to work it off in community service or something. I'm sorry, I can't think, but maybe they need to work it off in community service or something. Do something like that, find them. Just like their trash ordinance in Lewiston, that's the problem. Tenant puts a piece of trash outside or a garbage bag, landlord gets fined? I don't think so. That's not fair, but.
I think to a degree, from my perspective, this is certainly an interesting notion. Because I'm not sure the tenants realize how powerful they are and how much clout they have. Because if we all play our role, the downtown would be could be an unbelievably great place. And it is a good place. It's getting better. It could be better yet, but we all have a role. And the tenants are certainly consumers, and I think they can flex their muscles. It has been a challenge to take tenants to task. It's hard enough to take landlords to task. Just because bringing a tenant to court, generally speaking, is probably not good use of our resources. Because we do have smoke detectors, we see it quite often, that are removed out of units, and that's not the landlord doing that.
What do you do in that case when the smoke alarm is missing and the tenant removed it? Even though it's illegal, I think by federal law even, but certainly by state law, I'm sure. For the tenant to remove it, what do you do then? Is there a fine assessment?
The landlords are great. We ask the landlords to replace the smokes immediately. Because at the end of the day, once the landlords know that we know that there are smoke detectors missing, they really need to put those smokes back in, regardless of what happens.
So the tenant commits a crime, removes the smoke alarm, and you have the landlord pay to buy a new smoke alarm when they already bought the initial one, which the tenant illegally took down. What? Where's the
The
accountability?
landlord has the ability to take action against the tenant.
Yeah, and do you have any idea how much that costs or how long that takes for the way it
Absolutely.
is?
That's your
It's
problem.
terrible, it's
Absolutely.
disgusting.
You put them in your
Absolutely
apartment.
how much that costs.
You don't know or you do?
I do.
Okay.
And I'm not suggesting it's
Don't
easy.
play victim.
Well, that's part of what we're doing though. I feel like that's part of the solution that we could be coming up with right now is a balancing act between, I think both of these are really key points. Hold landowners accountable. We definitely need to be doing that. But I think we definitely just as much need to be holding tenants accountable. I think it's a two-way street and we need to balance both of those.
So you'd be in support of both of these sections being part of the comp plan then, Josh?
I would be. With some adjustments, I would be. Because I think both of those are important. Yes, you have landlords who don't take care of their buildings, but yes, you have tenants who trash the apartments and do stupid things like remove smoke alarms.
Are there legal issues around creating a database of bad tenants?
We have one actually.
They do a blacklist.
There is already one exists, and I, with my minimal knowledge of the law, I would say that there's not, if it's done the way it's done right now. The way it works right now is there is a person who can sell this program. They create a program. It's a database. You can look up a tenant's name, and you can find out if they have been evicted. It's not slanderous type of stuff or libel or anything like that, where it's not landlords saying, oh, don't rent to this person because I didn't like them. The people who are in that database went through the FE&D process and lost, the forcible entry in their eviction process and lost. And that's all public information anyway. All that this program does is put it in one centralized database. And I think that it's a recommendation that I would actually make, that I would make. I think that they sounded like they wanted to do something similar with the landlords. Something about an app and doing it online. So I think a database for tenants would be great.
I'm actually surprised that the reverse doesn't happen. And maybe it doesn't, I just don't know. Where downtown folks, advocates, keep a list of landlords that tend to be problematic.
They do Google some of the landlords' names around here. I've seen even people sitting in this room have written like long posts about landlords. It's there.
There again, it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
So in general, this section is, if it could be implemented with some changes, you think this would be a good section to live in?
I think are you talking about the entire section or just?
Well, I mean, in general, the whole section.
The entire section I think is terrible. I think it's one of the worst parts of this comprehensive plan. But if you're talking specifically about holding people accountable, landlords and tenants alike, I do support that idea fully.
Okay. The land bank, abandoned properties and trying to get them so that we can deal with them sooner before they get totally destroyed. Seems to me like that might have some impact as far as not losing